All right, let's do it. Hey, everybody, Natalie Cutler-Welsh here, the go-to girl from upyourbrave.com. And I met up with my lovely friend Jo yesterday in real life, which was so awesome. And I'm like, Jo, we got to get some of your gold to my people because not only always, but people right now especially are really, they're challenged, they're struggling. And I know you've got so many areas of expertise, but today we're going to talk about how to amplify your self-love and why self-love is the key to happiness, especially right now. So, hey, everybody joining us on Instagram. Awesome to see you. Let us know, how you're going with your self-love. So Jo, I'm going to hand over to you. Jo is known as the Happiness Hustler. She's the author of the amazing book, which is called Hate Myself, Hate My Life. More on that later. She's an incredible speaker and a coach for women and teenagers who are really struggling. So Jo, over to you. Can you elaborate on your backstory on that? And then we're going to dive into why is self-love so important and how can people get more of it?
So a little bit of backstory about why I'm a self-love expert, where it came about. Yeah. Just a real quick synopsis. So always struggled with self-esteem, how I looked, how my thighs are too fat, my bum's too big, my boobs aren't big enough, whatever it was throughout childhood, into your adolescence, teens, whatever. And then, that kind of stuck with me, got married, had 4 children. But throughout that, just hated myself more and more, I think, and less worth than worth. And it wasn't just how I looked. It was I succeeding and what was the expectations of success? And, I'm stuck in that rat race of life and, get the next house, get the next car, have another child, but actually never having that kind of inner happiness or inner peace. I was always exhausted. And then eventually my first marriage broke down, which was heartbreaking and really hard. Family is my top value. So to lose my family was shocking. And at that time, I absolutely hated myself. Who's going to want me? I'm 35 years of age. I've had 4 children. Haven't been naked in front of anybody for quite a while, blah, blah, blah. And my self-esteem was at rock bottom. And at that time, I got into a relationship with another person who love bombed me, but happened to be not very kind and not very nice. And that was a 5-year abusive relationship in the end, which was unpleasant. But within that, I realized I had a make or break. It was a make or break moment. It was like, live or die, girl, live or die. This is your choice. And it was a pretty traumatic night of abuse, verbal, emotional, psychological, and further. We don't need to go into all the details. But I remember sitting on the sofa and literally having this dark moment where I've got my car key in my hand and my phone in my hand, because pretty much how I slept for the previous 6 months, thinking this just isn't okay. I'm a nice person. I've got a nice heart. And I gripped onto that. And there was just something inside of me, call it a intervention from somebody above, source, whatever, or just an actual realization and say, I can't do this anymore. I need to love myself. I cannot pull myself apart anymore. I need to love myself. And it was literally as if a light switch had been turned on. And I chose to love myself. Didn't know how I was going to do it. Didn't have the tools or the resources, but by God was I determined. And when I have determination, thankfully, it's one of my things. I have grit and determination. I just went for it. And it's a conscious decision. And it's so important because how we think, feel, and treat ourselves does affect every action, decision, reaction that we have in life. Simple as.
I love that you mentioned and you identify it in yourself, this make or break moment. So for those of you watching us Instagram or watching the replay, can you identify in your own life a make or break moment when you decided to, in my languaging, right, up your brave and make a massive change in your life? It might not have been as traumatic or dramatic as Jo's. It may have been, and we're not comparing. The point is, can you identify what I'm going to call a make or break moment? And Jo, when I talk to people, I talk about these different zones that we fall into, the disconnected zone, the should zone, the frustration zone. And in the frustration zone, you're finally ready. You're like, you know what? Enough is enough. So it's not so much, oh, I really should leave. I really should, no, it's frustration. And you were even deeper than frustration. It was this enough is enough. Something's got to give. This is not okay. I'm so effing done right now. And then, you got to up your brave and get into what I call the impact zone. But for you, you realize loving yourself was the key. Well, changing your scenario, getting out of that, but also self-love was the key. So let's talk about either what did you do to self-love, but I know you coach women and teenagers on self-love right now. So what are the main things? Maybe give us 2 key takeaways. How can someone love themselves more? How do you do it? Like, we know intellectually, okay, I really should do that. I really got to do that. How do we do it?
Well, again, it's a choice and it starts with decision. I can't work with anyone unless they're determined to change. And it has to be a personal decision. If parents can't bring their teenagers to me and go, they need to love themselves. I can't have somebody go, oh, can I bring my husband or my wife? I really want them to work with you. They really have to make the decision themselves. And when we make a decision, it's like, it's easier to be 100% committed than 98% committed. You think about, oh, well, I'm kind of going to give up refined sugar most of the time. But when I go out for dessert, I could maybe have a look at the menu. But if you're not having refined sugar, the answer is no, thanks. And I know that sounds really basic, but it is true. So if you go into this to go, and I am determined to love myself, that's what I'm going to do. When that voice pops up in your head, which it does, it's forever there. Mine is there forever. We have that devil, we have the angel in our head. When it pops in, it starts with that unhelpful talk. Ooh, does your bum look big in that? Ooh, you sure you can do that? Ooh, who are you to try and even do that, miss? I'm too big for my boots. Whatever the voice is saying to you, and sometimes it's way nastier than that. You go, oh, thank you. Thanks for that. But I'm not partnering with you today. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find something to be grateful for, or I'm going to turn that around into something else. I.e., for me, at the beginning, I couldn't say many nice things about myself because I hadn't done it for a long time. It takes practice. So when I was in that dark space and I was like, right, I'm going to love myself, what did I hang on to? It was that I was a good person. And I truly believe that in my heart. It wasn't a lie. So whenever that voice popped up, it's like, Jo, you're a good person. You've got a good heart. You can do this. Mm-hmm. If you're that good, you deserve your love as much as anybody else. So the voice was still there. And I wasn't saying, no, you're wrong. I wasn't going to have an argument with it. Instead, what I was going to say was, thank you for that, but I'm not going to partner with you today. And you have to have conversations out loud with yourself, or perhaps in your head, so you don't look too crazy in the middle of the supermarket. But that's one, make a decision. How is it going to change your life? How is it going to change the trajectory of your life? Okay, well, I could struggle for the rest of my life and hate myself, be my own worst enemy and a bully, or I could be a best friend and I could be my biggest cheerleader. Okay, decision. That's your first step. Second one is when the voice pops up, as it always will. Okay, well, I'm not going to partner with you today. I'm going to try something else. And again, it's practice. It's all about neuroplasticity. It's all about changing behaviors and changing stuff we've been doing for so long. But people think it's going to take a long time to change. It actually doesn't.
And I'm just going to jump in there because I think some people might think self-love equals self-care, right? So we can talk about self-care, but they might go, oh, I'm going to get my nails done, but hey, I don't feel any better. It's like, well, that's not really self-love. That's just like getting your nails done. Right?
That's a treat. It's a nice thing. It's a nice thing to do. Absolutely. And I'm all about self-care. I truly love self-care. Self-love is so much deeper than that. Self-love is about loving every single part of yourself and every previous version of who you've been. So for me, just because it's easy to talk about me rather than clients, because it can be a little bit confidential, but I can't sit here and berate who I was age 35 and go, you stupid, stupid girl, you got into an abusive relationship, you've put your 4 children through a hellish situation. I can't do that because that's not constructive. Instead, what I can do, I can go back and I can forgive that version of myself and I can love her more and more because by God, she was going through hell. She lived in a country where she didn't have her family. Her friends had turned her back on her. People don't like to get in the middle of a messy divorce from the first time. So I felt helpless. I felt hopeless. And this man came along. Well, show me a person who perhaps wouldn't go down that road. And I've got to love her like I've got to love my 14-year-old version of myself who had an abortion, like I've got to love my 21-year-old version of myself who chose to go down one area in my career and not another, and my life could have been so different. I can't go back with huge regrets. I've got to love every version and every dark part of myself that's still in here because it's so much easier to create change when we are in a place of love.
Oh my God, Jo, I sit here and I'm holding the phone and I'm trying to take notes because every time you talk and every time you like intro yourself at my, my networking club, I'm like, I just want to capture it all because I wrote down, do you love all versions of you? And that question itself. So to the audience watching, like, can you, are you loving all versions of you, all those experiences that, and that is, as Jo's saying, key to all of this, right? And by the way, I'm just going to jump in and say, if you guys want to meet with us in person, we are doing Align Your Wellness, which is a live event in Auckland, 4th of November. Jo is one of the awesome speakers. So definitely find the link, link in bio. I'll put the link below. So I'm going to talk about that a bit at the end, but if people just watch the little bit, I want to make sure they know if they're in Auckland or can get themselves to Auckland, come along and hear more of this. So Jo, back to you. We were talking about, do you love all versions of yourself? And you obviously worked on that and you help other people to do the same thing. Do people struggle with that? Do they go, I just can't do it. I can't love the 16-year-old version of me that had this incident and I can't do it.
I think it's alien to people at first because it's something we're not necessarily taught. But once they are given almost permission to love themselves and all those, you see this weight being lifted off their shoulders. I watch people transform before my very eyes. I watch people walk in as a shell. And, maybe even kind of this kind of body language, because you've got to remember trauma and hurt is stored in the body. And what's a natural instinct that we do when we are in trauma? We go like this because we're protecting our internal organs.
Right.
It's like this. We go back into that fetal position. We're protecting all our internal organs. And I watch them sit there. Then I watch their shoulders come back to life and I watch their face change of color. And so they go, oh my gosh, absolutely. And I remember I said this to this young girl last week. She was a new client and she was just divine, 17. I mean, it's a hard age. It's a tough age to be going through anything, especially right now. And, she was a doll and she was beautiful. She was stunning. Of course, couldn't see any of that about herself. And beauty's not here. Beauty's here. And she was just radiating this beauty and she's gorgeous. And then I was saying, what do you think of your mum? Name me some words that describe your mum. How do you feel about your friend, your best friend? Are they worthy? Do they have to prove to you their worth? No. Does your mum have to prove their worth? No. And do you think your best friend is worthy just for being? Yeah. I said, well, what makes you so special then? Why are you so special as to not be worthy? What makes you, come on, you tell me what makes you so bloody special. And it sounds like I'm being really mean and picking on them, but I'm just really pointing it out in a sharp, harsh way. And they go, oh yeah, why am I? And I want them to know that they're incredibly special, but not for that reason. I want them to walk away feeling gorgeous and special and delightful for being this unique, amazing miracle that's walking around on the earth, because we're all miracles. I don't want them to feel special, to think they're special just because they don't deserve their own worth.
That's awesome. That must be a real aha moment for a lot of people when they can do that.
I love it. I love it. I love watching. That's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because one, I felt that pain. I felt that pain for way too many years. I was in my mid to late 30s when I went on this incredible journey of self-love. And it didn't just happen overnight. And actually, it's a forever journey. I'm 45 now. I'm not getting off this train. This is a forever journey. And do things still pop up for me? Absolutely, because we layer our healing. And I welcome it in. I go, oh, that's unusual. It's there. It's still there. But we work on it forever, and the rewards are endless. And I always thought, well, if I could help somebody just get through their pain, then I've done a great job. And I feel it's a privilege to be in the situation I'm in and help people. I love it.
And you're right. It's it is a lifelong journey, but I feel like people, it's easier. They start getting quicker at catching themselves. Oh, here I go again, with the negative talk, and they can bring themselves back to happy or whatever, quicker than before when they would have gone down the depths and stayed there.
Absolutely. That's exactly what happens. And you start to notice it. Your awareness becomes sharper and sharper and sharper. And I always say awareness is the first step to any kind of change, because we can't change if we're not aware. And my 3 favorite words are awareness, acknowledgement, and then acceptance. Because once we're aware, we go, that's interesting. Then we acknowledge it. We give it acknowledgement. Yes, that's how I'm feeling. And then we accept it. Okay, well, I accept that's how I've felt or how I'm feeling. But what can I do now? It's not like, why is this happening or why me? It's what can I do now? And that's the catalyst for change. That's the step forward that gets us out of that victim mentality. And it's the creator of change.
I think also the other thing I love about you is, number one, you're so fun. And I love working with fun people who are also quite straight up and direct. So, I mean, you fit that, that vibe, but also because you have so much experience with teenagers, you have 4 teenagers, but you also work with teenagers. Sometimes the teens just need to hear it from someone other than their parent.
Well, their parents don't listen. I mean, they don't listen to their parents. Sorry. You know, I
Yeah.
can't coach my own children. Do you think my children listen to me? So it's not like I'm all of a sudden doing all of this work with teenagers and I'm the best mum ever. And my teenagers all fall into line and they all look at me starry eyed and they take on my values. But what does happen is you don't realize they're listening, but they've got their own journey. They've got to go and make their own mistakes. I've just got to give them the thread to do that, and the trust in myself to know that I can be there to hold them through their mistakes. They're supposed to make their mistakes while they live at home. We go, great, they're making mistakes because this is the safest place for them to make them. But actually what they do, my children, is they bring their friends to see me. And so you think some of it is sinking in, isn't it? Some of it's there and it's great. But what I do with my children, if they need help, they go to somebody like me or somebody else, another professional, because at the end of the day, I'm their mum.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you guys, if you're loving what Jo's talking about, she does awesome videos. There's one about about being sexy and all sorts of things on your Instagram. So it's the Happiness Hustler.
_Happiness Hustler. But you can always find me under Jo Webb as well.
Okay, awesome. So I'll put those links below as well. Jo, can you talk a little bit more about our upcoming event, Align Your Wellness? I think your topic is self-love. What else are you going to cover in that? It's like a 10-minute talk you're doing.
Yeah, and I'll probably give some tips and tools on how to get there and why, the advantages of why, you know, the life-changing experiences. And self-love is always my topic, even if I'm talking about resilience, even if I'm talking about forgiveness, even if I'm talking about creating change in the world. I believe it all comes back down to self-love. So I love getting up in live events. I love talking, but equally, I do have kind of a outline of a plan of usually what I'm going to talk about. But however, I usually walk in and I take up the energy of the room, and I can usually pinpoint, you know, if you get there first and do a bit of mingling and you see what's going on for people, and I'll give it back to the audience what they need there and then on the day, because sometimes there's just certain messages that come through. But you know, self-love, we look around, how many people do you know, like look at friends, look at family, look at children and see where they're struggling, and most of it's within this I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not important, I'm not lovable. That's generally the underlying thought process under most problems that teenagers and adults are going through. So yeah, I can't wait for the event. I love live events. I love being in a room with people. I love collaborating with other amazing speakers because there's always nuggets that you get from each other and you end up bouncing off each other, which is awesome as well. I love it.
Exactly. And there'll be people coming that want to come genuinely for their own wellness or for their family. And there'll be other wellness practitioners or other business owners coming that just want to mix and mingle with other speakers and meet people. And my view, even though I also have a wellness-based business, it's like there's always more to learn. You can always learn more. So I always get like inspired and motivated by anyone that shows up, whether it's a speaker or just someone that I'm chatting with in the networking time. So you guys, if you haven't seen that, you can check it out. It's actually on my website, upyourbrave.com. You can find the info for that, as well as other upcoming events like my networking night. But if you're watching this video and that time has come and gone, you can get in touch with Jo for sure and find out more. So Jo, let us know, like, how do people work with you? Do you only do one-on-one? Do you do group stuff?
I do both. I do one-on-ones and groups. So with teenagers, I would normally work on them one-on-one first. And then if they choose to go into a group program later on, if they want some connection, that's okay. But I find to begin with, teenagers need a little bit of one-on-one because they don't want to open up in front of other teenagers. You know, there's that insecurity, feeling like they're perhaps the only one who's ever felt like that. They need some help to get over that hump. But yeah, and women, I work with one-on-one or in groups also. It's you know, it's whatever your individual need is really. Group is really, really powerful because you often learn through other people. You realize you're not alone, but some people love that fast track and the powerfulness of the one-on-one as well. They feel more comfortable there. So it's just whatever your individual needs are. And of course, face-to-face or via Zoom. Yeah. We love Zoom now since the whole world seems to be on it.
That's awesome. Okay. So, and obviously they can tell from your accent, you're from the UK, but you're living in Auckland.
I am.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And same with me, guys. I'm originally from Canada, if you haven't seen me, but I live in Auckland as well. I saw this guy this morning. I was walking the dog and he's like, "Oh, where's your accent from?" And I'm like, "Oh, Canada." And he goes, "How long?" And I go, 26. And he's like, "What?" And I go, 26 years. And he was like, "What? How can you sound like that?" I'm like, "I was only 23 and I moved here and my accent is stuck." Anyway, thank you guys for joining us on the Instagram Live. Please go ahead and click the share button. You can actually share this video, private message with anyone in your life that you feel like maybe could use a little help to amplify amplify their own self-love. I mean, basically everybody, but also specifically thinking of the people Jo specializes in working with, which is teenagers and moms. Is that right? Or is it women?
It's women. Oh, but to be fair though, that's what's my speciality. I have families come to see me for mediation. I have couples come to see me. I have men, but my main focus, my main clientele is teenagers and women.
Yeah, love it. Okay, awesome. And we'll see some of you guys in person, hopefully at the Align Your Wellness event, and also your book. So if they're like, I like the sound of the book, how do I get that? How do they go?
That's on my other website, which is www.impact-mentalhealth.com, because I wrote that with my other business partner under Impact Mental Health.
Amazing. So, okay, you guys, I will grab those links. I will put them below somewhere. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us. Add a comment below or a question. If you've got a question for Jo about self-love, put that below. We will come back in the video. We will comment back to you. If you are good at self-love or you're working on your self-love, let us know what you're working on at the moment. Is there a habit that you've taken up? Maybe it is the positive self-talk that you're really getting better at. You know, self-love, I think, also relates to boundaries. So, you know, for me, carving out time for me, yes, it looks like self-care, but it's also related to boundaries and when I'm available and when I'm not available to my children or to my clients. So think about what you're currently doing for self-love, comment below and let us know, or any questions for Jo. Awesome. Jo, anything else before we wrap up?
No, just thank you for having me. And like, obviously self-love is such a big journey. It's so much more than what we've talked about today. As you say, boundaries is one of the things. It starts with talking to yourself nicely, and forgiving yourself and forgiving others and taking responsibility. A big part of self-love is taking responsibility for that. Some of the things that have happened in our life and walking forward in a place of empowerment. And it's so amazing. Once we start taking our power back, our life changes. But yeah, it's so much bigger, but we only had a snippet of time today. So thank you so much.
I love it. That's so good. Forgiveness, responsibility. Amazing. Okay, I'm going to stop the video and then I'm going to stop the IG. Thanks guys for joining us. We'll catch you next time, and check out all the details upyourbrave.com.
Yay.